Good morning to all of you. My pleasure to be here. I'm very happy to contribute to the discussions that you're having here. So, as mentioned before, I'm head of BTG Pactual Digital in Brazil. I have been working at Pactual for the last 20 years, started at the bank in 2000 when I was 23, I'm 43. So I think most of you already know the bank. So the bank was founded in 1983, and in 2014, it's a traditional investment bank, doing business in investment bank, asset management, and wealth management. But in 2014, we decided to launch a new business initiative, which is now BTG Pactual Digital, where we, leveraging on technology, we decide to offer our products and services to retail, high-income retail clients in Brazil. And we have the opportunity, and we are evaluating the opportunity to expand this offering to other countries in Latin America. So, coming to the presentation this morning, I remember that I have a great friend of mine, a Colombian guy, David Vélez, who is a founder and the CEO of Nubank, one of the largest unicorns in the world, founded in Brazil. So most of the inspiration that I get to start the digital initiative at BTG was based on a meeting that I have with David back in 2013-14 in Brazil, where he was with his team, 20 guys in a small house in São Paulo, a few of them coding in the kitchen. And it was very inspired to me after 15 years at that time. As head of fixed income, head of asset management distribution, I was in doubt about starting this new business initiative, and it was very, very, very interesting, the conversation with David at that time. I didn't know that the company would value $10 billion. What is BTG Pactual Digital? It's basically a startup inside the bank. We focus on user experience and investments to clients from retail, high-income retail, and even wealth clients in Brazil and Latin America. It's an open architecture where where the offering is delivered through B2B and B2C channels, leveraging on technology. Everything that I'm gonna talk to you guys here is based on technology. I wouldn't be here without the technology. I wouldn't succeed convincing my partners at BTG to start this initiative without technology. Building a brick and mortar network in 2014 would be something that it would be impossible. So this digital initiative is based on four main pillars: an open architecture platform where the clients can access products from many different issuers. So this is a concept that I know that is not so well, how can I say, adopted in Latin America. It was not adopted in Brazil also. I remember when I was in the asset management distribution, only Citibank in Brazil were open to offer our funds at that time in 2000, 2005, 2010. And over the time, the culture was changing in Brazil. And this kind of initiative depend a lot of this open architecture. I can show you in the next slides how the platform works, the number of funds and the number of independent asset managers. Another important point is digital onboarding. To compete with the big retail players with brick and mortar branches, there's no way without a digital onboarding or an access where the client can check the portfolios, can do the investments and redemptions by themselves. Third, the B2B is a short-term trend. The B2B is the channel where we hire independent financial advisors to take care of the client-facing, the relationship with the clients, and we provide them, it's a partnership where we provide them all the infrastructure behind the platform. So we developed the infrastructure to the B2C, where the clients come to us and open their accounts on a 100% online process. But we also offer this structure to the independent financial advisors in order to bring more scale to the platform and dilute the investments that made. So this is the roadmap of what we did since 2014. So we started as a fintech. It was a signed job at that time. Until 2017, I was in charge of the asset management distribution team in Brazil. But and over the time, we delivered into many different phases. We started, the first phase was March 2015, when we opened the platform only to employees. Then in October 2015, we gave one more step, and we brought a few clients from our wealth management division, a few small clients. Our wealth management business in Brazil is pretty much focused on ultra high net worth individuals. And over the time, we had in the wealth management a few small clients with 100,000 reais, 200,000 reais. Just to let you know, the FX rate in Brazil, dollar real, is 4. So just to do the calculation, multiplying or dividing by 4. So the third phase of the project was in June 2016, when we finally opened the platform to new accounts. So in this third phase, we finally was ready to open new accounts. In the first two phases, we were just dealing with existing clients. And finally, in October 2016, we went public. The platform was open to the market, but to be very honest with you, it was very, how can I say, it was not something so ready to the market as it is nowadays. We consider that the full platform was really finished now in January this year. So just to give you an idea, in January 2017, the platform, we used to offer to the clients 12 funds, only one manager, our own asset management business, and CDs issued by the own bank. Nowadays, we have more than 100 different independent managers with more than 300 funds inside the platform, many different issuers, many banks in Brazil, more than 30 different issuers and corporates. So it's a real open architecture platform. So talking a little bit about our experience in Brazil, probably most of you will remember Pactual. So we had a very, how can I say, interesting moment in the end of 90s in Brazil, where many different platforms were released. And talking about a few of them, Pactual was sold to Santander in 2000 for almost $600 million. Max Blue was a JV between Deutsche Bank and Banco do Brasil, the largest bank in Brazil. And Invest Shop was an initiative launched by Banco Bozano Simons, an investment bank at that time in Brazil, later sold to Banco Santander. And why I'm talking about that? Because when we decided to start this digital platform in Brazil, we had very clear in our minds that there was some risks. Some people, some colleagues have already tried to do that in the 90s. And for a certain reason, it didn't work. So what we did was to study a lot. So I spent 6 months back in 2014 trying to understand the US experience, what happened with the failures in the end of 90s in Brazil, in order to build the necessary confidence to move on and to propose this new business initiative in our management committee. So after these studies, and I became a reader of MBA cases. So I'm showing here a few of them. So everything related to Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, more than 50 different cases, MBA cases, and a few conclusions about the U.S. experience and what happened in the end of 90s in Brazil were basically with an interest rate so high as we used to have in Brazil, around 25–30% a year. The society is very well in where they are investing. There's no reason why to move on to try to find out a better way to invest. So it's important to have a low level of interest rates. Also, the technology changed a lot. At that time, there was no smartphones, no broadband. So with that quality, that internet that we used to have in the 90s, onboarding process as we have nowadays in BTG Pactual Digital, where some clients can open their accounts in 30 minutes, it will take 2–3 weeks, and it wouldn't work. And financial education, it's also something very important. As Marina mentioned in the last presentation, without the financial education, it's difficult to believe that the majority of population will invest in equities. So in Brazil, nowadays, we still have more than 90% of the wealth of the Brazilian families being invested in fixed income. But at least we now have an interest rates around 6%, maybe 5%, but between 5 and 8% for 5 or 6 years, it's something very powerful. It can reshape the asset allocation of the society. It's what we say that Brazil is about to start a financial deepening, where the society will learn more about investments. People will discuss about better ways of having better returns. So, and finally, and the most important, independent financial advisor industry. It's something that is very, very important. In the end of 90s, we didn't have the financial education. The interest rate was almost 30% a year. There was no independent financial advisor industry. And when we look at the experience of the United States, we see that how the independent financial advisor were important in the beginning of 80s, and they are still very important, even in a scenario where we see Wealthfront Betterment and robo-advisors trying to compete with the human advisors. So here is the main players in US and in Brazil. So we start to see in Brazil a more sophistication in the investment scene. So we see the investment banks, ourselves and Itaú BBA, the retail players like Banco do Brasil, Itaú, independent asset managers. SPX is one of the largest hedge fund managers in the world with more than 40 billion reais in assets. And fund managers with online platforms like Fidelity, ourselves and XP are competing a lot in this scene. The registered independent financial advisors, the way the independent financial advisors are named in the US. The online platforms, we focus on B2C. The online platforms, we focus on B2B, digital banks, and robo-advisors. So we now have in Brazil all these segments being represented in our investment scene. And this is a way that we see the US market is a research from a consultancy company. And what we are building inside digital is a way to do business where we can position ourselves as Goldman Sachs, where we already are doing business. Some people say that BTG is better than Goldman, so I apologize for my colleagues from Goldman, but it's a a joke that we hear sometimes. But with the digital initiative, we believe that we can also bring the high-income retail and retail clients to the platform. And well, everything that I'm talking here about the digital is real. It's part of our reality nowadays because of this digital revolution that we are living. So the same movement that benefit Uber, Facebook, Amazon, Airbnb, and Netflix, companies that we used to say asset light, is something that will benefit our B2C business and can allow us to compete with the brick and mortar banks, retail players, with a low cost structure. So when we do a partnership with independent financial advisors, we don't have to take care of with the costs of their offices. We don't have to take care of the HR department. It's a perfect combination where the independent financial advisor takes care of the relationship with the clients, and we take care of the infrastructure behind and the technology solutions. So what I believe is that all these new apps like Uber, Waze, and all the fintechs and startups that we are watching being released every day, at least in Brazil, we see every day a new company. It helps us to see clients ready to have the same interesting experience, user experience, and the clients start to ask for the same quality of user experience in other segments of their lives. So it is something that, together with the financial education, will how can I say, help the B2C, the development of our B2C business. So looking to the US market is important because due to the size of investment that we already did and looking forward, we still have a lot of investments to be done. It's always very good to make sure that we're in the right direction. So I mentioned about the competition between the robo-advisors and the independent financial advisors, and this is a question that we always discuss inside the bank, and looking to the U.S. Economy is important to help us to build the necessary confidence to keep on investing. So when we look at the registered independent financial advisors industry in U.S., more than 34 million people are investing through independent financial advisors. And when we compare with 2012, we're to 23 million. So even with more competition with the robo-advisors, the independent financial advisors, the registered independent advisors in the United States are still growing, and the assets under custody is all-time high, more than $82 trillion in the U.S. The number of registered independent advisors in the U.S. are still growing, more than 12,000 different offices. In average, we see 5, 10 individual registered independent advisors in the U.S. And even with the competition of the robo-advisors, this market is still increasing. The number of branches in the U.S. reducing, it's a global trend. It's happening the same way in Brazil, and the number of independent advisors benefiting from this movement. It's easy to understand that a relationship manager working at a bank, they can become an independent financial advisor, and this is the main, how can I say, driver for growth independent financial advisors. Talking about the Brazilian industry, here we present the total number of accounts that we have in Brazil, 73.77 million accounts. Here we are considering only investments. You're gonna see people saying that 120 million accounts in Brazil, but those numbers are related to accounts with no investments. Here we are considering this number is from Ambima, National Association in Brazil. And we have in the retail segment more than 66 million accounts. In the high-income retail segment, 6.7 million accounts. And the private banking is 100,000 families. So it's and when we look at the assets under custody, we have more or less 1 trillion reais for each segment. So the way that we have been doing business until 2014 as a traditional investment bank with wealth management, we were reaching only the 1.1 trillion from the wealth management, but now with digital, we are ready to offer good quality of services and products also to retail and high-income retail segment. And it can be transformational to our business. I don't know how much of you already saw, but the stocks of the bank went from 19 reais to more than 60 reais, and we did a follow-on for more than 2 billion reais. And most of this interest for our stocks in the market are as a result of our digital initiative and what we can do in these two other segments. The main points that we see is that if doing business in the wealth management where the clients are more sophisticated, there are more competition because there are not only the 5 big retail players trying to do business with these clients, but also the international players. And we have more than 10% market share in the private banking industry in Brazil. And when we look at the high income and the retail segment, 2 trillion reais, the double of the wealth management industry in Brazil. The clients are less sophisticated. There are less competition because the big international players simply don't try to do business with this type of client. And as a consequence, the price of the products are much higher. And the architecture is a closed architecture. If you visit a branch of Bradesco, you will see funds of Bradesco Asset Management. If you visit a branch of Banco do Brasil, you only see funds of Banco do Brasil Asset Management. So it will be much easier to compete in this scene where we can provide funds with very low fees due to our low cost structure without brick and mortar retail branches. So the way that we call the independent financial advisors in Brazil is agentes autônomos, de investimentos, inversiones. So, and here is the way that we see this market growing, basically based on relationship managers who are now working in financial institutions, becoming independent financial advisors, the same way we saw happening during the 70s, 80s, 90s in the US, and it's still happening in the American market. The evolution of number of branches in Brazil. So I'm a lucky guy. We decided to start this businesses in 2014, and you can see that since then, the number of physical branches in Brazil are reducing. And again, every time a big retail player decide to close a branch, they fire a few relationship managers that become independent financial advisors, and and they look for an investment platform like ourselves to plug their clients, and this is basically how we can grow so fast. Just to give you an idea, in the second quarter, the net new money reported by the bank were more than 50% from the digital, and in comparison with our traditional wealth management business. And but there's competition, and as I mentioned before, every day we see in Brazil a new investment platform. So XP is the largest player. They have been doing a very great job starting this business. They were the first mover in this market. We have a very good relationship historically with XP. A few competition for the independent financial advisors, a few issues, legal issues, but things are going well. It's competition, and it's the largest deal that we saw in Brazil. So Itaú paid 6 billion for 49% of XP, a total valuation around 12 billion reais. And Agora were acquired by Bradesco in 2008 for 840 million reais. Easy Invest is an online investment platform, 100% B2C. Rico is a broker acquired by XP in 2016, 380 million, the valuation of the acquisition. Genial is a platform from our former partners who launched Brasil Plural in Brazil, and they decided to do an acquisition in 2012, around 150 million reais. Clear is another acquisition made by XP back in 2014. Orama is an investment platform founded in 2011 by the former partners of Agora, who sold to Bradesco. Modal Mais is an investment platform from Banco Modal. Is a bank founded in 1995, but they started their platform in 2013. And Guide Investimentos were acquired by Fosun, the Chinese investment company, in 2017. The valuation around 400 million. All these numbers are public. So, and our business is not listed. We saw, and most of you already received also a research report from Morgan Stanley saying that digital would be valuing something between 10 billion to 20 billion reais inside BTG Pactual. But in spite of all the hype, what is very important to mention is that we still have more than 93% of the wealth of the Brazilian families being invested in 5 big retail players. So what happened until now is almost nothing. We believe that in the next few years we're going to see this number reducing to 83%, 73%, and imagine what can happen in the financial market, in the capital market in Brazil, and that's why I'm so excited, and we are so excited with this initiative. Talking about open architecture, as I mentioned in the beginning, as one of the main pillars, this is the way that we are positioning ourselves and against the competition. So our initiative is to be honest with you, we started a little bit late. So most of the platforms doing business in Brazil started in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13. We decided to approve this new business initiative only in 2014, and the platform finally is ready with all the products in January this year. And that's why we increased from 62 investment funds to more than 350 funds. It's all about technology in the end of the day, and there's a huge backlog, and that's why it took us so long to catch up with the competitors. And when we look at the number of fund managers per platform, we have more than 140 different managers, and this is very, very important if you want to see an investment online platform. This is what we saw in the US experience. This is what's going on in Brazil. And again, when we look at fixed income products, certificate of deposits on left-hand side, and right-hand side, corporate bonds. So inside our platform nowadays, we have more than 40 different issuers for CDs, and more than 20 corporate bond companies issuers inside our platform. So another important pillar of our digital business is the onboarding process. Without a fully online onboarding process, it's very difficult to compete, and I believe we would not be benefiting from technology the same way as other startups in other segments are doing. So this is something that we like to follow. We like to track how quickly we can open the accounts of clients. So basically, last month, 40% of the accounts were open in less than 4 hours, with all the process compliant to Brazilian Central Bank, which is pretty much, how can I say, rigorous. And 80% of the accounts last month, in July, opened in less than 24 hours. Again, we are in the user experience world. So if you don't provide the access to the client in the moment where they are trying to open the account, you can lose the lead, and it costs a lot, the online marketing, to bring the clients to the conversion funnel. So this is the evolution of independent financial advisors in Brazil. Back in 2014, 2,300 independent financial advisors. Now here in 2019, more than 5,000 independent financial advisors. In the last certification we saw more than 6,000 people doing the test. So it can give you a good view about what's going on in this market in Brazil. When we compare to US numbers, we see more than 500,000 independent financial advisors in the US market. And every time we see a relation more than 10 between Brazil and US, we see as an opportunity. So we believe that in the next few years, we can see this number, which is now 5,400 independent financial advisors, increasing to 15, 20, 30,000. We see nowadays more than 100,000 relationship managers working inside banks, and most of these people can become independent financial advisors, as I mentioned before. So how the agentes autônomos, the independent financial advisor, works in Brazil? Basically, the professional must be registered by CVM. They have to do a certification, and they can prospect new clients. They can receive and register others. It's important to mention here that when an independent financial advisor is registered an order in the name of a client, we send to the client a push notification, their cell phone, and they have to confirm, they have to agree with that. So this is something that technology allows us to do in order to offer a better solution, safety platform to the clients. And they can provide information about products and services. offered by the institution where they are linked. Nowadays in Brazil, there's a regulatory exclusivity for bonds, corporate bonds, and equities. So we don't have this exclusivity for funds or CDs, for example, but for stocks and corporate bonds, the CVM, our local version of SEC, they oblige the independent financial advisor to be linked to only one institutional, to only one financial institution. The concept behind is to have someone with an institution with deep pockets behind in order to answer for any problem. So this is the way that our market is working. This regulatory exclusivity is something relatively new. It started in 2011, 2012, after the number of problems that we saw in Brazil in the 2008 crisis. And that's why CVM at that time decided to create this regulatory exclusivity. So the agentes autônomos they are allowed by the legislation to answer questions from clients. They cannot indicate an asset allocation. This is something that I have to be very clear with you guys. It's difficult to believe that during a conversation between an independent financial advisor and a client, the independent financial advisor is not indicating an asset allocation. But that's why the CVM is asking for the market about suggestions in order to improve the legislation and avoid this kind of situation where you have the legislation saying something that is not being, how can I say, 100% compliant in the day-to-day business. The compensation model is basically based on commissions on the products that they sell, and here we can see some people saying there's a conflict of interest, but I don't see this conflict different from what we have inside the banks, where you have bonuses and goals for products that not really benefit the client, and most of the time benefit the own institution. So the same way we see good professionals in other fields, we see the same way here in the independent financial advisors. Our challenge nowadays is try to hire the good ones, the independent financial advisors that are really interested in build a long-term relationship with their clients and put the interests of their clients in first place. So the average profile of independent financial advisor, most of them left banks. They used to be relationship managers inside a private bank or retail branches, and they decide to move to an independent platform in order to have open architecture, can offer better products to their clients, and this is the concept behind. And regulatory framework, as I mentioned, we are now in the middle of these discussions with our CVM in Brazil, especially about the exclusivity of this regulatory exclusivity. We see, how can I say, probably we will see a change in the legislation, and this regulatory exclusivity can over, and but we are still waiting for a final decision of CVM. The players in Brazil are allowed to send their suggestions to CVM until the end of this month. So we believe that until the end of this year, we're going to see something changing in this market. So basically, this is what I had to present to you guys. Again, we are very excited with this opportunity in Brazil after the the initiatives that simply didn't work in the end of 90s. We spent a long period in Brazil, and sometimes we used to have internal discussions saying that probably we have to believe maybe here in Brazil we will not see this this movement of financial deepening and this Charles Schwab business happening in Brazil. But since 2012, 2013, we see clear changes in this market. I see the technology helping a lot, the onboarding process, as I mentioned. This is something that we couldn't see in the end of 90s. The decrease of the interest rates in Brazil also, as I mentioned before, allowed the financial advisors to try to offer better products to the clients. We are now seeing in Brazil the same feeling that we see in the American society, in the U.S. society, where the return in the fixed income is so low that the people invest in equities because at least they have a chance of having a better return. So we believe that's gonna happen the same way in Brazil, and obviously an independent platform, as we are offering an open architecture platform, as we are offering to the clients, is something that will be benefiting from this movement. So thank you so much for the audience. My pleasure to be here in Colombia. I'll be here for the rest of the day. If you guys would like to talk about the subject, my pleasure. Thank you so much.